Right, that's how we start the day off as usual. Of course, you've had the news update and sports. It's now time to take a look at the headlines, and we've been joined by social commentator Ayodele Adio. Good morning.
Good
Thanks for
morning.
joining us. Happy New Year.
Nice to see
Happy
you.
New Year. Thank you for having me.
Great.
Okay, we'll begin with the Daily Trust. The headlines are quite troubling if we start off with the gunshots at Lagos APC rally as 63 parties endorse Sanwo-Olu. Is there any need to emphasize or underscore the fact that no politician's ambition is worth anybody's blood?
Yeah. I mean, it's I don't know. It must become a creed, in our electoral process now that we must make away with violence completely, because it was an embarrassment yesterday what happened, where you had people being stabbed and gunshots, where you had all of the dignitaries in Lagos State, whether it was the senators, the members of House of Assembly, the governor, the
incumbent governor and the
so it was really embarrassing, because anything could have happened.
governor.
What if a stray bullet had hit any of a senator or a governor?
Yeah.
I mean, it's really
And
embarrassing,
to think
we
that
must
this
do
actually
more.
happened while Kwam One, was playing.
Yeah,
And we hear
yeah.
that somebody just fired
Yeah.
a gun right,
Yeah.
where he was
I
playing.
mean,
there.
and it goes to tell you the kind of people that are actively participating in the electoral process. And so we must do more to have...
Yeah.
Anyway, the reports say that it was a clash between factions of the National Union of Road Transport Workers and all of that. So you know that the NURTW as an organization, even as individuals, as an organization, also participates in the
Yeah.
electoral process.
Especially when it
the
comes to
campaign
logistics
process.
and all of that, yeah.
So they were actively involved, and reports on the papers and all of that say that it was a faction within the union that clashed
NURTW.
yesterday. It was for things to degenerate to the level to which it did. It means there was actually either breach in security or something.
Oh, yeah.
There
Because,
obviously was a
where
breach in
all
security.
those, like you said, where all those persons are gathered in the same place, to have that kind of a fracas, so to say.
All right,
is
moving on.
happening.
FG NLC agreed to transmit minimum. Moving on. FG NLC agreed to transmit minimum wage bill January 23 as workers staged nationwide protest. Okay, so it had to get to that.
Yeah, I
for,
mean.
for us to have a definite date.
Oh yeah,
for
yeah.
the
So
transmission of the
finally, I
minimum
think they've
wage
come
bill.
to some sort of an agreement, and hopefully January 23rd, the National Assembly will sit and, of course, debate it.
And NLC too has said if this date comes and goes without the transmission of the minimum wage bill, the father of all strikes will begin without any notification.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll wait to see how.
Exactly.
See how
The
it
point
pans out.
there is, government had not fixed a date. You remember on the first day after they had met and agreed, and we're going to transmit that report to the president. We were asking. You remember we were asking, is there a time frame? Has there been a date fixed
And
for
it
this?
was just
It was
open-ended.
just open. Now that the government has come up with a date, let's
Okay.
hold them and wait and see.
Yes, indeed. Military siege on Daily Trust will be resolved. That's according to the minister. Card reader has legal backing, INEC says. NSC market capitalization loses 136 billion naira. Mi-35 helicopter crash. Air Force buries 5 personnel. And of course, our hearts really do go out to
Yeah, exactly.
the
Really
Air
a
Force
sad
personnel
situation.
as they are laid to rest. This card reader issue, there's been concerns about whether, because of the refusal of the president to sign the electoral bill,
Yeah.
that the card reader may not have legal backing, but INEC is reassuring that it does have.
Yeah, I mean, he's
Legal backing.
made it clear that there will be no incidents form come
Yeah.
the coming elections. That clearly they are not going to use the incident form, and I think that's a breath of fresh air. I think the only problem is the fact that when these cases went to court in the tribunal, the card reader situations were not recognized by the judges who ruled. And that was why it needed to be clarified in the bill, that was being canvassed in the National Assembly.
Yeah.
So I hope that is being resolved.
Yes. The only thing INEC is saying we won't do for this next election is the transmission of electronic
Transmission of results, yeah.
of
Results,
results.
yeah.
All right, the Nation is our next paper now. Tinubu blasts PDP and Atiku. APC chief rallies Buhari campaign council members ahead of poll. And he quotes, what he quotes here is quite along.
When Buhari says yes or no, you
So
know
you know
where he stands.
and that he means what he says, no more, no less. With Atiku, things are more nuanced. When Atiku speaks, he may mean yes or no,
no, or I don't
or
know,
maybe,
or
or
come
I don't
back
know,
tomorrow.
come back tomorrow, all of the above, or none of the above. Well, it's political time, so you're going to see
of
lots of those. Yeah. All right, and then the picture of the Air Force personnel that were involved in the helicopter crash. The minimum wage bill for transmission, January 23, so we'll wait to see how that goes. More 13% derivation cash coming for oil states. All right. Questions have been asked all the while. 13% over these years. Some states get up to about 5 billion extra. Others get 7 billion. Others get 10 billion. What has been the justification for all of that? But when it comes to the law is the law. So
oh yes, you have to follow the law. The only difference is that the people in those states need to hold their governors accountable. You can't have states as rich as Akwa Ibom, as Rivers, as Cross Rivers,
Bayelsa.
as Bayelsa. So if you live in those states,
Edo, Delta,
and then your
they're all
governors
rich.
are owing salaries, or they give excuses that the problem is the federal government, then you know there's a problem. Then you know there's a problem with leadership there. So you need to hold them a lot more accountable for the billions that they receive every month.
Yeah, the question is,
right.
how do they hold their governors accountable?
well, first they need to be aware of
Yeah, of
some
course,
of
they
these
need to be
things,
aware
because,
that-
because
that
the
these
challenge
things come.
sometimes is they don't even know these things.
I'm-
Sorry, a lot of them don't
I'd-
know these
I'd
things,
shock
especially
you.
for those who agitate.
Yeah, I'd shock you. A couple of years ago, I was in a discussion with a few people in Ondo State, and they never knew. And these were educated people that didn't know that Ondo State benefited from oil derivations monthly. And that was the time where people were being owed salaries in their
When
state.
Ondo State is
and
in
they
the-
did not
is the
know
Niger
that
Delta
they
state.
were getting money
Okay.
from.
All right, Ambo, the Lagos deserves continuity. 63 political parties back Sonwolu. NURTW factions clash. Okay, and that's Ekiti official abducted. Sad. Ambody arrests soldier for driving against traffic. Salah is Africa's best. All right, this is not the first time the governor is running into any of the officials, driving against traffic. We saw that under the Fashola
What beats
administration
me
as well.
is the report that he was actually shocked that people, especially security operatives, were driving one way. Shocked? Really?
Exactly.
Governor
Shocked.
shocked?
Why would you be
It's-
shocked? You
it's-
should
it's
know.
a
You
no.
should know.
It's
These
a
things-
norm.
It's
It's a
in
daily
Lagos. It's
reality.
been happening. It's something that we
In fact,
see,
when
we
you go to the
experience it every day.
Apapa, the Apapa area, that's if you're heading to Apapa from the Oshodi, Badagry Expressway, right from where they call the Beggar Junction, you see tons of people headed through one way. You have all of these, naval officers who ply the one way, trying to beat the traffic to get to the offices, and all. It's chaos completely in that area.
Real chaos.
All right, because when a governor makes a statement like that, when you're supposed to know everything that happens in your state, it sends signals that you are disconnected from the people sometimes. Yeah.
Well, maybe there's something about the seat of power that just wipes, deletes all your... All right, to the punch. FG, Labour signed pact, National Assembly to get minimum wage bill January 23. Now, this transmission of the minimum wage bill, does it automatically mean then that the workers would get their 30,000 naira?
Absolutely not. It's just the transmission of the bill, and I'm sure that it's still going to be debated in the National Assembly.
It's going to go through a lot of...
From the body language of the National Assembly, it's saying, okay, just bring it on, let's do this thing for the people and all of that. But the point there is, it is still, National Assembly is still part of government, federal government.
Yeah.
And one cannot say, okay, when it gets to the National Assembly, it's going to be passed the same day, because there are processes through the National Assembly.
Yeah, well,
too.
it
has to go
depends.
through the first, second, and third
It
reading.
depends on the
How
political
quickly will
expediencies.
it go through the
depends-
processes that it needs to go through?
Depends on the political
You need
expediencies.
to bear in mind, too, that the Minister for Labour and Employment, Chris Ngige, has said a minimum wage will be paid, meaning that there is a strong possibility that it may be lower than the 30,000, that NLC is clamoring for.
Now, when it
But
leaves...
NLC
when it
is
leaves,
saying 30,000 or nothing.
Yeah, well, but when he leaves the executive arm and gets to the National Assembly, that is another kettle of fish altogether.
Completely.
Because you don't know the mind of the National Assembly. They are the representative of the people. They could say, okay, in our minds, from our constituents and what we have seen on ground...
It should even be higher.
It should even be higher.
Yeah, so-
It could
so,
go
yeah,
there and they
so
say,
that's
well,
why I said
the
this-
law
this-
gives us the power to amend and all of that. If
Oh,
we
yes.
can do
Oh,
that to
yes.
the budget, we can do that to any bill.
Oh, yes,
And
because-
they could say, okay, let us jack it up to 32,000
Yeah,
or
or
31,000 or
Yeah.
35,000
Because
based on
they're in
whatever.
control of the national purse. But here's it. I think it will boil down to political expediency at the time because everybody's looking to score cheap political points before the elections. And this is going to
Well,
get
will it happen
right at the
before the
time
election?
before the elections. And you want to see people trying to play Big Daddy and Uncle Sam. So what will happen, I can assure you, is that it's going to be politics all the way. But whatever they do, they should realize that the Nigerian people will either bear the brunt or pick up the gains after that bill is passed. So
And,
if you're ceremonial and
Labour
you
has
pass
demonstrated
50,000 where
that
the country
at the-
cannot afford
Yeah.
because you want to score cheap political points, the country is going to go broke trying
But
to pay.
technically-
With the protest yesterday, do you think Labour has emphatically, said, look, at the end of the day, we own power with all the rallies all across the country?
Yeah, I mean, see, I think Labour have had some criticism over the years that if you had stood your grounds, you would probably have not been owed salaries in several states.
start
And
with.
some leaders
Okay.
have been accused that they've been friendly with certain governors, and that's why certain governors have gone. So I'm sure now they are sticking to their guns, and they would ensure that they get a better deal from this wage
This
bill
time
that's
around.
being transmitted.
All right.
Okay,
But ultimately,
two-
the federal government has succeeded in making sure that the national minimum wage bill doesn't affect the presidential election.
Oh, yes. Oh,
Because transmitting it on the 23rd,
Yes.
you have handed it over to National
National
Assembly.
Assembly.
Whether it is passed or not,
It's not your
another
problem.
matter.
election
You've
is
kicked
election
the
is
can down the road.
February 16th.
I
So
catch your
that's it.
drift. The bottom column of the Punch there. Why have not fired service chiefs acted on IG? Buhari explaining there. Okay. Did you hear his explanation?
That's quite an interesting story because
Yes.
I mean
Because
and
you
it
don't-
ties
you
it
don't
ties
change
it ties
a
to the
team, whether it's a winning
Yes,
team or a
yes.
losing team in the middle of the game.
And it ties to the explanation, that Tinubu was making in the Nation headline where he
Yes.
said Buhari is going to be totally honest. And for me, he was honest in the interview. He admitted that they were failing, and he said that he bears the responsibility for them
their
failing, and he wasn't going to change them suddenly because he didn't want to disrupt. And I found that a bit worrying because if you could admit on the one
That they
hand that they
failed.
were failing, I wonder why they still have their jobs.
Okay, and in the case of the IG, he's saying, I'm not afraid of the IG. I'll fix that issue when the time comes. Salah retains CAF Best Player of the Year award. No Nigerian on that list, unfortunately.
Well, if you look at
not
the
good,
high
not
flyers,
good. Are we-
if you look
are we
at
making
the real
progress?
high flyers, certainly no Nigerian.
Nigerian
It's, the days of Nigeria.
Okay,
is not
and
now.
MC Oluomo, journalists attacked as thugs disrupt Lagos rally. Okay, Lagos APC rally, that is.
Exactly.
Okay.
All right, the Vanguard newspaper is our next paper now. Retirement, I'll take action on IGP Idris. Buhari is saying that in an interview. Now, how the action is going to be taken, no one knows yet. So we'll wait to see. Adds, anyone with information on shady deals involving wife, son should publish. Now, there are these reports here and there that when it comes to the family of, well, just leave them out of a whole game and all of that. Denies stopping EFCC from probing Akpabio and states why he doesn't believe in state police. Now, this goes straight in
the
contrast to what the vice president said at the time as the government is, committed open to state police.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
when senior or the main government officials, you speak that one, I speak this one, what signals does that send to the people?
I mean, except we want to pretend. Everybody knows that the president and the vice president have, slightly different views when it comes to the elements of restructuring. And one of them, cardinal, is the issue of the state police. The president believes more in a centrally controlled police force. And the vice president is a little more lenient and makes an argument for a
liberal.
The
decentralized
president is saying, look, the
police
states
force.
are not even able to pay salaries.
But that's the
anyhow.
truth,
I mean,
actually.
what do you think will happen when you give a policeman a gun
And I
and you
totally,
don't pay him his salary?
I
That he doesn't
totally,
want to be part of
I
that.
totally agree that not all states can have a state police force because you cannot fund them properly. Because if you look, I looked at the research by a professor in Sokoto that researched the Zamfara case and realized that the more they had vigilantes, raising vigilantes in communities to defend those communities, the increase in the attacks to those communities. So
And banditry and
more
all of that.
banditry and more people becoming more vicious in those communities. So if you have a state police that is not properly equipped, that is not properly
Well
remunerated,
motivated.
you're going to have a surge in some of these activities.
But then
where
again, like
the
somebody
people-
said, you know, would you say because the fire can cook the man's food and also cook the man,
Yes.
that would do away with fire?
No. The argument is a state like Lagos can do effectively with a state police because it has the resources
So allow
to effectively
states that
pay.
can actually handle it
exactly.
to
You know, I think
go
Lagos,
ahead and
Rivers
do that.
State,
Ultimately, I
and
think
maybe
there's-
Kano can afford
ultimately-
a state police.
Yeah, but
Because,
ultimately, I
Kano
think
has
there
a
is-
Karota force
I
already.
think ultimately there is a failure of leadership somewhere. Now, in true leadership, when you are galvanizing support for a cause, if we are saying this is where we want Nigeria to be in at a certain time, as a dream as the case may be, it is not the issue of allow the states who can pay should pay, who cannot pay should. No, if the vision is caught by the leadership, you can drive all the states in that direction.
Yeah.
Whether it is Lagos that has the most resources, or it is Zamfara or Benue or any other states who doesn't have the resources, you can galvanize all of them based on their comparative advantage.
Well, he
That
did
is what
praise,
leadership
he
is
did
all about.
praise Lagos State for its neighborhood watch initiative as proof that, yes, truly, that local policing can happen. But we have been released, and it's a good one. How heartening is it for you to hear from the CEO that the journalists were not manhandled in any way?
It's not heartening for me in any way. It shouldn't have happened in the first place. And it's becoming a recurring decimal that I think we need to stand up and defend our democratic rights. Dakpo Olorunyomi was picked up a year or two ago in Abuja by the same military. The military are issuing orders to international NGOs to leave the country because they don't like some of the reporting or the stories that they give out. We need to decide what we want to be in this country. However angry the military are on a report or on an international organization, there are channels in which you could address those issues. Because it's important to know that the press is not under what you call the tribunal or whatever military code there is. Absolutely not. The press has a right
like some
to
analysts would
report.
say that a press, governments, every government actually benefits from a free press.
Exactly.
But unfortunately, many governments seem not to be
Yeah,
able to
exactly.
tolerate, the freedom of
No,
the press.
they tolerate and even call for the support of the media when they're getting
when they're
into
getting
government.
into government.
When
But
they get
after
into
that-
government, it's a
then
different thing
becomes a
altogether.
different thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a different
Entirely.
thing
All right,
altogether.
our last paper this morning is the New Telegraph. Presidency, Atiku has no vision for Nigeria. That's according to Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Ashiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu there, the national leader of the APC, who will be fully in charge of the Buhari campaign right now. And of course, PDP, Buhari will use and dump you after polls. That's their view.
You gotta love politics, yeah.
Yeah. Now you know that the political season is truly here. But
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
like a lot of people have been saying, can we really just get to it with the issues?
You see,
Nobody seems to be hearing that.
Unfortunately, the issues have been relegated to the background. And I think, again, in a way, the Nigerian people do not really care about the issues. And when I mean the Nigerian people, I mean the majority. Maybe a few minority care to look at the details of this campaign, to check the economic policy and what have you. But when the rubber hits the road, when they are in stadiums and they are campaigning, nobody's talking about their economic policies. They are saying sensational things that rallies up their base, and then the issues are left in the gallows. And so it's quite unfortunate. I hope our democracy gets to the point where we'll focus on the issues and we'll debate the issues going forward. And I hope that the media, most importantly, and I'm also working on doing a research to find out what really pains the people, what the people actually want and expect from a democracy.
But even if you
And we
make
can use that
comparison,
to
if you
share.
make comparison, 2015 election had more issues
Yeah,
than what we're seeing
yeah,
so far,
yeah.
except if in the coming days we see the real issues coming up. Otherwise, if we make comparison, if you listen to jingles and all of that, there were the issues coming out of of jingles at that time.
Yeah, the opposition at the time picked one or two issues that they picked corruption and they picked the security issue.
But those are actually the debate.
And they hammered on it all through. But I must say again, but here's the funny thing. I think the opposition this time have designed a different kind of strategy, and they are concentrating on the base where they feel the president is most popular. And they are promoting the issues on those local areas.
Okay.
So,
All right. Thank you very much, Ayodele Adio. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, as always. Okay.